Why does growing a services company feel so difficult? How can you bend the traditional growth curve so that you don't have to add team members and complexity to deliver on every new dollar of revenue you sell? And where exactly does AI fit into this equation? Hi, I'm Courtney Baker, and this is AI Know-How from KnownWell, helping you reimagine your business in the AI era. For today's episode, we're going to bring you the first half of a recent webinar we ran called Breaking the Growth Barrier, AI-driven strategies for scaling professional service firms. I got to help moderate this webinar featuring KnownWell CEO David DeWolf and longtime friend of AI Know-How, Pete Buer. As always, with these two, I found myself walking away much smarter after taking part in the conversation than when I started it, and I know you will too. Enjoy part one of Breaking the Growth Barrier. Part two will be coming your way next week. And hey, since this is a webinar with supporting slides, we'd encourage you to watch this episode, not just listen to it, but we will include the slide deck in the show notes. Enjoy. Let me give you a quick overview of what to expect today. We're about to share the unique challenges facing you as a leader of a professional services firm. The main reason we're here today is to talk about how AI can help you overcome some of those challenges. The good news is that it's not all doom and gloom, even if you've been unnerved by all the recent headlines and AI agents taking over. At the end of this session, you'll have several actionable strategies you can deploy in your organization to scale your firm and break through growth barriers you've encountered in the past. I will say goodbye for now, and I will jump in on the end of this conversation to wrap things up. Pete, David, over to you.
What you know, as well as I do, is that when you're running a services business, you're not actually focused on those things she just talked about. What you're focused on is the big questions of, do you know where your next 10 million are coming from? Do you know where that 20 million, even that next 200 million is coming from? When I started 3Pillar back in 2006, those questions would have sounded nuts to me. I was focused on the next $500,000 contract, the next $1 million contract, maybe. But as we scaled past 50, past 100, past $150 million and beyond, those became very real questions. The questions of scale really started to be the forefront of mind that you go to bed thinking about every single night. And as we hit certain milestones, those challenges that we faced as leaders and as an organization changed. Personally, I remember having to reinvent myself about every 18 months just to remain the leader the company needed. As your company grows and evolves, so do the challenges and what it takes to overcome them. Reaching those different milestones of 50, 100, 150 and more in revenue is a remarkable achievement for anybody, no doubt about it. But scaling to get past those points gets exponentially harder as you move higher and higher up that revenue curve. As growth accelerates, firms typically face growing pains that they can't solve by continuing to do what they have always done. You know this as much as, if not better than anybody. As your organization grows, Pete, you will face challenges that are new to you. You're going to go head to head with market leaders, not just startups. You're competing not just for clients, but you're competing for talent as well. High touch relationships that when you were a small boutique and were relationship driven, that relationship nature of your sales was enough. Well, now it's not enough anymore. And it becomes harder and harder to scale. There's just so much to overcome to reach successive revenue barriers. But I can tell you, despite this challenge, it's possible. And that's why I'm so excited to be here and to share these AI-powered strategies. Pete, you've lived this in your journey at CEB, from low double-digit revenues right around to about $1 billion at the time of the Gartner acquisition, Tell us more about your experience. What did you learn from going through that similar journey?
Thank you, David. Yeah, I look back on the time and the run that we all went through together. My memory's a little bit fuzzy, a little hazy. It's kind of like the morning after your 21st birthday party. We had maintained reasonably high double-digit growth, actually for quite a time, 30 to 40 percent across a number of years, and it felt like we were stretching the physics of work on every dimension. More custom research this year than we did last year, more advisory engagements, more sales and more salespeople. Oh, and by the way, more research people and more advisory people, new product lines, and then more new product lines, new geographies. Had to figure out how to do acquisitions. We kept pushing harder and harder, and it always felt like we were redlining, ready to blow the engine. I remember sharing that feeling with a good investor friend of mine at the time, who made the astute observation several times that trees just don't grow to the sky. And that's the feeling, right? Like there's something physical, something existential always getting in your way as you're trying to grow a professional services business.
Yeah, Pete, we tend to agree on a lot of things. But I think based on these two journeys, we can both say pretty confidently that we are perfectly aligned on this, right? B2B services growth is flat out hard, especially once you get past that 100 million, 250 million, $500 million barriers, right? Those are just really, really hard points to scale. The law of large numbers just kind of catches up to you, and those physics you talk about tend to start weighing you down more and more, and you feel the pressure of them.
And speaking of numbers, I'd like to share a little market evidence to substantiate this storytelling that we've been doing here. So, a little data that we pulled together with the help of AI, apropos to the situation. Distribution of services firms, uh, 0 to 5 in revenue over on the left hand side, working your way across to the right to the 250 plus over on the right hand end. The small companies, 0 to 5, make up the lion's share of the market, 65%. Slowly but surely, as you keep moving right, the numbers drop kind of precipitously. You're already in low single digit percentages at the 50 to 100 million mark, after which you kind of fall off a cliff. We couldn't even make the graphing program actually work for the slide. Once we got to 250 plus, we had to drop in a long, skinny rectangle to show just how small the population is at the top end. Fun fact, there is no single source for this data across sectors. So ChatGPT and I, in a glass of wine, had some fun extrapolating from a number of different data sets. I was the human in the loop, so I feel good about the results that we cranked out. And even if we're off by just a little bit, it's fair to say it is indeed lonely at the top. So let's talk about why that's the case. Reflecting on our experience together, David, in building professional services companies, pulled together some math, some representative math, shall we say, behind what's so hard about growth. First part of the equation, as we have on the slide, specialized talent. Think about the traditional profile of your most trusted hands players on the team. Superwomen, supermen who have to be good at everything. Deep expertise, great communicators, great problem solvers, rainmakers, you name it. In the world of unicorns, these are the gold-plated kind. Costly to find, costly to acquire, costly to keep, costly to support, costly. Part two of the equation, then, bespoke delivery. You hear it all the time from your teams, right? Every customer is different. Every implementation is unique. Tons of operational complexity with each new instance and endless personalities to deal with all across the customer organization. And all that bespoke complexity intensifies with growth. New business lines bring new teams and processes. New markets bring new regulations and HR practices. And all of it adds up to more and more layers of overhead and operating expense. So A plus B then equals C. Here's the result, visually portrayed. Our take on the revenue productivity of the services business model. Cost on the x-axis, revenue on the y. The punchline is that relationships are relatively linear. So for every increment of revenue you'd like to acquire, there's an additional increment of cost you have to field to get that revenue. There's just not a ton of leverage in the traditional model. But that's the traditional view. Now, of course, times are changing. Let's talk for a second about this notion of bending that curve. We'll start with the same graphic over on the left-hand side, the direct relationship between the two. But our job as leaders, with our commitments to stakeholders and the team, is to find a way to make that curves of our business look more like this. For every dollar of cost, I don't want one more dollar of revenue. I want 10 or 20 or 100 or 1,000. And I want a business model that continues to expand over time, continuously scaling revenues and getting more efficient with costs. And that's possible today in a way that it hasn't been in the past. As we'll explore across the rest of this session, AI gives us the ability to bend the curve, tightening the denominator with automating time-intensive, capacity-consuming rote work, and now increasingly and importantly, augmenting and automating even the stretchiest knowledge work. And then expanding the numerator as well, creating new value for customers and providing intelligence to the team to help them see around commercial corners and make hay with new and existing customers. Our view and premise for this conversation is that properly deployed AI can change the game in professional services.
Pete, I love how you broke that down. It's the old adage that folks say, services are unscalable. And I think you just broke down and explained to us really why. And that background and the historical challenges of scaling services companies is so helpful for framing the conversation. And it feels so familiar because it's something that you and I have both lived firsthand. I know that when I was running 3Pillar, I look back, if I had AI at my disposal during that period of time, wow, unbelievable what we could have accomplished and how that would have taken us even further. It would have helped make so many of our processes more repeatable, reduced our reliance on those gold-plated unicorns, right? We literally used to talk about hiring unicorns, right? And how hard they were to find. Another big opportunity that we'll touch on in this next section is that AI can help you to elevate your commercial management discipline too. And we all spend so much time with sales management and rigor and discipline pre-sales. Well, post-sales, managing the commercial relationships that you have, it simply wasn't possible to do with the same data and rigor and discipline just a few years ago. But now we can with AI. The bottom line is that throughout the client lifecycle, we are seeing a lot more opportunities for AI to be deployed and used. This is coming not only in service of the client and in doing the day-to-day work, but also in uncovering opportunities for growth within these clients and ensuring that you're expanding these commercial relationships with those clients you work so hard to win in the first place. We're going to focus on two primary strategies that really push into these. These are reflective of the advances that we're seeing in the market. Strategy one looks at automating client interactions and evaluating your workflows to see where AI can be applied to drive this efficiency and these touch points. Strategy two is focused on new ways that you can leverage AI to elevate, not just optimize, but elevate that commercial management, take it to the next level, enabling you to bolster revenue growth and improve your client retention and ultimately your net revenue retention. As you'll see as we go through these next slides, the idea is to make your business more efficient while also tapping into AI to help drive more profitable growth. Ultimately, Pete, that's how you deliver on bending that curve that you were talking to. It's about that bottom line.
Cool. Let's get into it. The first strategy, automating client interactions. I think the punchline of this section is kind of in the subtitle there, reducing cost and complexity while enabling your people to focus on higher value work. We've seen lots of high profile cases in the news, and we've profiled them on the Known Well podcast. But companies across the board are finding ways to free up hundreds or even thousands of employees' time with AI tools and agents. And we'd like to share a few examples of how we've seen that happening out in the world. So we've arrayed across the page from left to right some of the use cases that we've come across. And it's arrayed on the client lifecycle. So over on the left-hand side, outreach and acquisition, through to the right-hand side, renewal and extension. So let's just cruise across it. First column, email automation and lead qualification in the sales process. A lot of the early innovation with AI in commercial activity was on the front end, figuring out how to make outreach more efficient. Moving right then, tutorials and onboarding to help enable post-sales activities. David, you referenced post-sale just a moment ago. In the middle then, tons of examples of chatbot service and issue handling support in the ongoing relationship management phase. To the right of it, billing and payment facilitation. And then over on the far right-hand side, supporting renewals and extensions with KPI reporting, ROI demonstration, and auto-populated pitch decks for annual review sessions and QBRs. It wasn't that long ago that this breadth of work had to be covered by dozens, or maybe even, based on the size of your portfolio, hundreds of staff members. Now there are AI-powered solutions that you can build, or in some cases, in fact, buy off the shelf to tackle this workflow. Creating time savings for the team and removing friction for the customer, and best of all, done right, keeping the personal touch in services that the business is known for. So dramatically improved efficiency across an almost limitless set of opportunities. And I want to pause on that last thought of the notion of limitless possibilities, as that's as much of a challenge as it is an opportunity. The hard thing about automating client interactions and AI transformation generally, as far as the opportunities are concerned, it's not about finding them. They're everywhere. What's hard is prioritizing and sizing and making the most of the opportunities that are going to make the biggest difference. Little bit of recent history on the page to help ground this statement. If you go back just a little bit in time, the AI wave was crashing on corporate beaches across 23 and 24. And to extend the analogy, everyone was kind of playing in the surf, right? Investors were hot for their companies to come up with a plan, any plan, as long as we can report about it in the press, right? Leaders were getting up to speed, usually slowly and definitely not together. And there was not a lot of central coordination across all of the work that was going on, the education and the experimentation. And in fact, it was really 1,000 flowers blooming. David, you may remember this. When we were doing some of our early advisory work, we had a conversation with an executive who proudly reported to us that he had 426 AI experiments underway.
It was so well.
Yeah, very much a source of pride, right?
Yeah.
Did we believe that there could be that many experiments to play around with AI? Sure. Did we believe that those were all the right ones and there wasn't going to be overlap and conflict and that they weren't expending energy at the expense of focus? Good goodness, no. That was how things felt at the time. And of course, we've since learned that that's not the way to make progress with the new technology. And so you see that reflected in how the market is showing up today on the right-hand side. That era of unbounded experimentation has pretty quickly given way to an environment of harshly reset expectations, to projects with measurable impact, demonstrable ROI, and a genuine link to achievement of the business plan, not just experimentation for learning's sake. And so that's our guidance in chasing this wide array of potential automation opportunities. Planfulness trumps enthusiasm. We actually built an assessment tool to help customers prioritize their transformation projects. It's on the website. Please help yourself to it, anyone who has an interest. And I've cribbed over on the right-hand side of the page a couple of the key types of questions Here are 5 from the 30 that are in the assessments. Things that you should be asking yourself as you target your opportunity development. Are our projects grounded in vision and strategy for the business? Are they aligned with where we want to go? Are we focused on addressing the biggest customer and business pain points, initiatives that are going to actually move the freaking dial? Is the leadership team on board? Are we all pulling oars together? Are we bringing our people and our culture along genuinely, deliberately in the direction we're trying to go as a firm? Again, full assessments on the website, so please help yourself. But the point we're trying to get across here is that the how of automation and transformation is in fact far more important than the what. Last thought on automating client interactions. The game gets really interesting when you move beyond transactional interactions with customers to delivery of your core value proposition, the actual service work previously delivered by your teams of experts. We use the term productization for this stretchier type of automation. The more you can do it, the better off the economics of your business become. So on the page explaining the framework, we're showing the evolution of business models from the left-hand side to the right, where that diagonal line from the bottom left to the upper right shows the proportion of service work that's being delivered by technology. So on the far left-hand side, we have traditional bespoke services where the bulk of customer value is being delivered by expert humans. Over on the far right-hand side, product platform businesses where the bulk of customer value is being delivered by technology. The phases in between then are meant to demonstrate increasing productization of services. With each step to the right, the offering is more and more resembling a technology-delivered product. Now, to be clear, the objective isn't to get all the way to the right-hand side. We're not saying everyone needs to be a product or platform business, but there's just simply a lot of goodness in pushing righter, faster, wherever possible. The more productized your offering is, the more customers can self-serve, the easier it is to sell, the more predictable your revenues become, and back to our starting point, the more bendy your curve becomes. So if you check out episode 117 of the AI Know-How podcast, we profile an example of this reflected over on the right-hand side from IBM, their Enterprise Advantage offering. Over the past couple of years, IBM built an AI-powered platform for its own teams to use. It was built on data from 150 client engagements, company's proprietary data and analytics, and animated by AI tools and agents to help enable IBM teams. After proving out the value of that platform internally, they saved about $35 million in operating costs. They then packaged it up and started selling it to customers. So now clients have direct access to those same productized services, work that would previously have been done by expensive engagement teams of consultants and analysts for which you'd be paying an hourly rate. But instead now there's a platform for you to access to do the work on your own. Pretty slick, pretty 301 level. This is a company that's got a lot of resources to deploy against such an undertaking. But I feel like the case study stands for something important, the aspiration of getting beyond automating just the interactions with customers all the way through to automating and transforming into technology delivery, the core value proposition of the business. So I'll stop there, David. That's strategy 1.
Nothing keeps people coming back like a good cliffhanger. So we look forward to seeing you back next week for part 2 of the conversation. If you really can't wait to hear the rest of it, here's a hint. Check the show notes. We'll do you a favor and post a link where you can find the full on-demand version of this webinar. Our little reward for making it this far in the show. Thanks as always for listening and watching. Don't forget to give us a review on your podcast player of choice, and a 5-star would be great. At the end of every episode, we'd like to ask one of our AI friends to weigh in on the topic at hand. So, hey, ChatGPT. This episode, we're talking about how services companies can break through growth barriers that have traditionally held them back. What do you think?
Service companies usually stall out when growth depends only on selling more hours. So the breakthrough comes from changing the model. Stronger positioning, productized offerings, and systems that scale beyond the founder's time. Once delivery, pricing, and expansion are structured intentionally, growth stops being a grind and starts compounding.
And now you're in the know. Thanks as always for listening. We'll see you next week with more AI applications, discussions, and experts.
Hey, if you made it this far in the episode, first of all, thank you. And second, we know that AI is changing all the time, and so we've got you covered. Here is another great episode for you to watch to stay in the loop on what's happening in AI and business. And second of all, we'd love for you to subscribe. You can do that right here. I've always wanted to do that, by the way. So do that now. That would be great.